This is the Build Your Path podcast, where we explore how people get into their careers in the built environment. As we conclude WIC Week, we are joined by Karin Holland. Karin is the Industrial Construction Workforce Changemaker at Haley Aldrich and also the Director of Built by Baltimore. Karin joins us to discuss the importance of sustainability in construction and talks about the future of the workforce in Baltimore. Welcome on into the Build Your Path podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Pine, and for our last episode of the series for WIC Week, we are once again joined by MCCEI President Jennifer Sproul.
Thanks for having me again, Matt. It's been fun.
Absolutely. And our guest today is?
Karin Holland. I'm the founder and director of Built by Baltimore.
Karin, welcome to the show. We're happy to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So just give us a light introduction, who you are and what you do with Built by Baltimore.
Sounds great. And in fact, I should say I have a dual role. I also work for a firm called Haley Aldrich. Mm-hmm. I'm a senior lean practitioner and a sustainability and resilience expert with the firm. And actually with the backing of Haley Aldrich, I founded and now direct Built by Baltimore. It's a workforce development program in the construction space for underrepresented populations. And I'm sure we'll get into that in a few minutes.
Absolutely. So Karin, how did you get to where you are? How did you get to America, first of all, and a career in the construction industry? What pathway did you follow to get where you are today?
It was a bit of a convoluted pathway, actually, Jennifer. So I've been in the US about 15 years now. I started my career back in England and in Europe. I have a degree in environmental and natural sciences and a master's in environmental law. And as I said, I started my career in Europe doing a lot of environmental policy, auditing, permitting work before moving to San Diego 15 years ago, where I really got more interested specifically with the built environment and sustainability and resilience. I became a lean practitioner about 12 years ago and started applying lean thinking. If you're not familiar with lean, it's a philosophy that started actually in Toyota, but it's all around helping build teams and eliminate waste in processes. That sounds very uncollaborative and not in the spirit of building teams, but it's all around respect for people. So instead of someone coming in and saying, I'm the expert, do it this way, it's really harnessing the power of frontline workers to see what some of the obstacles and waste are for them and working with them to build a problem-solving culture. So I've been doing that in the built environment for about 12 years, moved to Maryland about 9 years ago, and really saw an opportunity. We have a huge issue with worker shortages. We're using lean thinking, we're using technology to try and address those needs. But at the same time, we have a huge, able body of workers in the region that we should be marketing the space to and bringing them on. So that's really the driver behind founding Built by Baltimore, actually using my lean experience and also my sustainability passion.
Awesome. So you've just talked about what drives you for Built by Baltimore. Is that what also drives your passion, the labor shortage, or is there something else?
Yeah, and I think it's really confusing to me that we have this labor shortage. I love working in the built environment. I love seeing buildings being erected and being a part of that, even though not directly but indirectly. No one really can say that in other industries that we're actually contributing to Baltimore, to the city, and to other areas as well. And also, there's so many different pathways you can choose in the construction space, and people narrowly think about the trades, which is one option, but also there's more holistic opportunities from project management and logistics, from the design side, from the engineering side as well. So I really think there's so many things you can do. And I already mentioned I kind of reinvented myself several times since being here. And I think there's a lot of opportunity in the space to do that and grow.
Obviously, like we talked about, there's a vast number of careers in the industry as well as pathways. And with that comes a number of certifications. For those young people listening who aren't sure what it is, can you explain what it means to be LEED certified?
Yeah, absolutely. So LEED is the Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. I think I got energy and environmental the right way around. But anyway, it's a rating system that basically helps you score your building in terms of sustainability. And it touches on different criteria from energy, waste, where your site is located, if it's accessible. And you basically get different points across categories that can give you a score, for lack of a better word, of how sustainable your building is. And depending on how well you do, you can get different levels of certification, all the way to platinum, which is the best level, and enables you to market that your building has sustainability attributes throughout construction. And you can use the rating system not only in construction, you can use it during operation and maintenance as well. You can use it for a portion of the building, for renovations. So it's a really nice way to have your building, demonstrate some of those sustainability features. And so I've been certified with LEED for many years, and it's been really great. It was a great experience getting the certification and also seeing the certification being used in action.
Yes, I guess I should correct myself. A person is LEED accredited and a building is LEED certified.
That's right. I'm sorry. And I always say the same thing.
I did the same thing. I am a LEED AP, not that I do anything with it, but I am a LEED AP myself, so I should know better.
And then Karin, for WIC Week, we've been asking basically every guest this question. We're placing a focus now on gender parity in the workforce. How can our industry be more inclusive?
I think that's a great question. Unfortunately, at the industry at the moment, there is a very small number of women as a whole, and I think it really starts in school. And I think we're going to get to this a little bit more later in the podcast, but really showing the linkages and the opportunities. And again, we talk about the vast range of careers there, and really carrying that through either college or on the job training. And then, when you get into the industry, pairing people up, making sure that people feel comfortable in the industry, that females don't feel they're the only one on the job site or the only one in the office, and have that peer-to-peer mentoring. I think that's really would be helpful as well. And just more generally marketing in the industry, showing that there's opportunities for women. And for example, that's something I'm trying to achieve through Built by Baltimore. What are the barriers for women and other underrepresented populations, and how can we address those to really get more people to join and stay in the industry?
Building off of that, what do you think the education system can do to show young girls a career in construction?
It's a great question. So I went to school many years ago, and so it was very different then than it is now. And I went to school back in England. Certainly when I was at school, there was no mention of what the construction industry entails. In fact, I didn't even know what an engineer did until I was halfway through college. It was very, subject-based, maths, science, history, geography, English, foreign languages. There wasn't that much, kind of career orientation, especially in construction. I think it was more, you're a female, you can go to some of the, these are the options for you versus, other options. So I think really, even going back to those subjects, how do you use math? What is the point of math? Obviously, it's important to know how to count when you're buying things and saving and the rest of it, but also how do you use math in construction? You learn about measurement. Construction is all around measurement. You learn, in science, you learn various things. How can you use, talking about LEED and using more sustainable materials? So I think tying the subject to the construction space is really important. If you're highly organized, females, I shouldn't even say this in front of Matt, but females tend to be very organized and love that little color sticky post-it notes and having a pretty desk. You're actually probably going to be a really good project manager if you have that skill set. So again, I think really tying those points together from a young age and showing the opportunities out there. And I think from what I've seen working with the school systems, with the work I'm doing, we're seeing a shift, but even more giving people and giving students that exposure, both when they're in the classroom, but as much as possible, exposing them to the industry. Again, had I seen a construction site and seen things get together. I loved math growing up, and I almost did a degree in math, but I really didn't understand how that fit together with engineering and everything else. Had I seen that, I think I would have had a very different beginning to my career.
And Karin, you just talked about the peer-to-peer relationship. How important do you think mentorship is in our industry? And as a follow-up to that, have you had a mentor?
Absolutely. I think it's extremely important. I've had mentors throughout my career, and I would say some of the mentors I have now in my early 40s are actually some of the most important mentors I've had as I continue to grow, as I look at, Built by Baltimore and try growing that program as well. But I think it's also very important, when you leave the education system and you go into the workforce. We talked about this a little bit before. You suddenly, you're kind of a small fish in this vast ocean, and it can be intimidating. It can be intimidating, you go on a job site, for example, or just making sure that you're that you feel that you belong, and you have a sense of space. So I think that's extremely important, both from having someone more senior, but also having peer-to-peer mentorship, so you can share those stories. And again, I think they continue to this day. Certainly for Built by Baltimore, MCCI, and Jennifer has been a huge mentor to me. I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for the support you have, the connections you have. And again, as I said, I really leverage them, and I think it's important throughout your career to have those. And you can also learn from younger folks as well. Some of my younger colleagues, I learn from them every day. I think that's been one of the biggest eye openers for Built by Baltimore as well. The things I'm taking back from the trainees, as well as mentoring them. So hopefully I answered your question. I didn't give you as well. I gave you Jen.
Absolutely.
Example, but very, very important in my opinion.
Absolutely. There's no age limit on what somebody can teach you. I completely agree with you with that.
Absolutely.
So speaking of the trainees, and I know we've spent a ton of time talking about this, are just the two of us, the outlook of the future of the industry with our huge labor gap. What are some ways that you think that we can address this need?
Join Built by Baltimore. No, I'm kidding. I think there's two really fundamental issues. I think, again, we talked about this, but we don't do a great job at marketing our industry. We don't talk about all the phenomenal things and how you start off down here, but you can be in this huge spectrum of careers very quickly, as well as having a really good salary within 3, 4, 5 years following leaving school or higher education. So I think retelling that story, and then also as our young adults do on the job training during apprenticeship, keep on showing them the end game, where they're going to be, versus, because it's an apprenticeship, for example, even in college, is pretty hard. There's a lot of hours to clock in, and you're not always doing the most interesting work. But I think just being able to relay where that's going to take you is very important. And then getting more diversity, and this is, I think, the point of today, and more generally into the workforce as well. And really also listening to our younger folks. I mean, we were laughing before we started with Matt, who obviously is much more astute at technology than I am. People, leaving the school system, they've all grown up with iPhones and iPads and all the technology that certainly wasn't around. I had one of those bricks at starting in college, and I was the only one with a brick phone. So, those are the things young adults are interested in. How can we tie technology to that? I'm not saying that we're going to get rid of manual work, but really figuring out what those interests are, as well as leveraging technology more generally to help fill some of those gaps.
And you've talked a lot about Built by Baltimore. What is Built by Baltimore's ultimate goal?
So I think it's tying everything that I've said up to now, Matt. So really, as I mentioned, Built by Baltimore wants to eliminate barriers to entry into the construction space. So how do we do that? We pay our trainees. They come in for about 3 to 6 months, and we pay them above minimum wage for every hour that they're with us, which is pretty much full time. They work in a single location, which is accessible to them. So, transportation, we haven't touched on this yet, but transportation is huge in the construction space. You often need your own car if you're going to become an apprentice, which is not that achievable, in more generally, whether you're female or male, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, certainly in Baltimore City, a large proportion of that age group cannot afford their own car. So that's why we choose a successful location. And we want to, as much as we can, we actually want to do prefabrication, so offsite construction where you're working in a conditioned space, because that's going to help. I'm 5'3" on a good day, maybe 5'2", and as you can tell, I'm not the strongest person. Being able to work at chest height is much easier than having to carry equipment, having to carry things onto site as well. And then Built by Baltimore also gives you that kind of vast training I talked about. So we cover craft training, so it's on the job training, so they learn at a high level, this is pre-apprenticeship level, about various crafts, but we also touch upon all those different things that are important in the construction space, from all the different career paths available. We touch upon technology, we touch upon advanced materials, project management, logistics, sustainability. Obviously, I have to tie in sustainability in there with my background, and other things that we think would be of relevance not only to the future employer, but also what's important to those trainees. And then we help place them, actually working with MCCEI and making sure that they have a good foundation to their career. We actually have a career management plan for each of our trainees, and that will be followed once they leave. And so we want to make sure that they succeed. So that was many goals, but that's what basically we're doing. And the goal really is to bring in more, so bring in underrepresented populations, minorities, females, but also those under-engaged. And what I mean by that is people who do not want to go in the construction industry because they don't really know what those careers entail.
I think what's really interesting too about Built by Baltimore is that your goal is not to recreate the wheel. You want to work with existing programs. Your goal is to get your trainees not just a certification, but to get them a career. So, when they leave Built by Baltimore, they could become an apprentice at either ABC or one of the unions. They could go to community college or a 4-year degree, or they can get a job right out. I think that's what's really amazing. We're breaking down the silos that currently exist in the industry, and we've said it before. I mean, the reason why people are passionate about the construction industry is the end result, being able to drive by a building and say, I built that, and like tell your family and your friends and the pride that comes with that. And I think we often miss that when we're introducing people to the industry. And I think with your approach to the whole life cycle of a project in a short amount of time is letting those people know that, yeah, maybe today what you're doing right now is not so exciting. I mean, I think what you're doing is exciting, but their first career or their first job in their career might not be as exciting. But like, look what you'll get to do if you keep up with it, because it is hard to get into this industry. It is an industry that is not even easy once you're in it. It's long hours. You could be outside all day, but it's really rewarding. So it's getting past those times when you maybe aren't making what exactly you will be making once you become certified, once you get your degree. I think your program is what's needed to get people excited about the industry.
Thank you. And I'm glad that you said, eliminating silos. I work in this space, and I know you both work in this space, and I'm still confused about the various programs out there. And so when I came in with this idea, the first thing I did was to reach out to as many programs as I could to show how, what was our niche, where could we fit in versus reinventing something, because that's the last thing I think our pipeline needs. I think they need to really see the whole system in terms of how to get from A to B in their career versus throwing another program at them. And I'm glad you mentioned that too, Jen. We're very non-political. We're in a pre-apprenticeship level, and we do not. We want to support both ABC and unions. We don't want to create a pathway for one versus the other. We want to be able to work with everybody, as well as the workforce development programs that both entities already have. So we want to show that clear continuum, how people can fit in. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Of course. So if people wanted to learn more about Built by Baltimore, where can they go?
They can find me. As you can probably tell today, I love to chat, and I can talk ad nauseum about Built by Baltimore. We're currently developing a Built by Baltimore website, so unfortunately there's nothing out there beyond press releases and things like that yet, but we're hoping to be online extremely soon. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I can also give you my my email address, or Matt or Jen can provide that.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Karin. You've been a wealth of knowledge, and we really appreciate it.
Well, thank you both. This has been fun.
If you want to learn more about Build Your Path podcast or the built environment overall, go ahead and visit buildyourpath.org. Another big thank you to our guests, Karin Holland from Built by Baltimore and Haley Aldrich. Build Your Path podcasts are produced by the Maryland Center for Construction, Education, and Innovation. I'm Matt Pine. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.